Welcome to today's podcast. Today, we're talking about becoming a better parent and how the path of progression helps us to overcome obstacles and raise our vibration to show up in our relationship with our children. And today, we have a very special guest all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, Kelly Aho. She's a certified professional guide, healer, and a teacher with the Modern Mystery School. She's been serving clients for over 12 years, helps them to overcome obstacles and move into life of joy and fulfillment. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, such a joy. We will be talking about such an important and fun subject, so
Mm,
I'm excited. Uh,
me too.
would you be able to share with us your journey? When did you find the mystery school? Were you already a parent, or did you find the mystery school after becoming parent? It would be lovely to know.
Yeah,
Start.
yeah. I got married to my husband. We're still married in 1997, and we became parents right away. And so we've been on this journey of parenting. I was very young. I think I was maybe 20 years old when my son was born. So for most of my life, I've been with my husband. We've been parenting. I've had children. I found the mystery school in 2011. It was kind of it's one of those interesting things. Sometimes I think the mystery school finds you, like you're not necessarily looking for it, and then it just like shows up in your world, and then you've got a choice. Like, do I say yes or do I say no? I'm a little stubborn. So when I found the mystery school, I was offered the life activation, and I actually said no to it 3 times. So by the time I got to the third offer, I said, yes, okay, fine, I should do this thing. It keeps showing up. So I got the life activation in 2011 and I became an adept initiate in 2011. So my children at that point were, I believe, like nine and 12. And what I found in the mystery school, because we got a life activation, and we very quickly were able to do the galactic activation, which is this really amazing finalizing the 24 strands of the DNA, giving you full potential. And so we did that class and we're able to actually invite our children to receive the galactic activation. So they did that when they were like 9 and 12. So I've been parenting for a long time because now my kids are 26 and 24. Um, yeah, or 27, sorry. He's 27 and 24. And so we've been in the mystery school together as a family since we founded in 2011. And yeah, so it's been a journey.
Wow, that's so wonderful, so wonderful. And by walking the path, have you noticed how that helped you to become maybe better parent, or did the parenting become easier? How that affected? Because you kind of have I love your story that you have a comparison how it was before and how it was after.
Yeah. Well, I think the very first thing I noticed, certainly after the life activation, because for me, the life activation really helped me to understand relationships and like the relationships that I had in my life, the ones that were empowering and supportive, and the ones that were really the opposite of that.
Mm.
And so that really helped me. But that was also, I started to see like some of these imbalances of relationships within my parenting with my children. And so when I went to the Empower Thyself class, so the Adept Initiation class, um, I the very first thing I noticed was that empowerment made a big impact in how my children received the things that I was saying to them. And I was at the time, I mean, I think I said yes to Empower Thyself because I was extremely depressed. I was living this really beautiful life. Like I'm American, so it was kind of this American dream life. Like we had this beautiful house in the suburbs. My kids were in private school. I was able to stay home and raise them. like we took beautiful vacations. It was like a picture perfect life. And yet I was depressed and unhappy. And I felt bad about being depressed and unhappy. Like I felt a lot of shame that I had this beautiful life. I had this amazing husband. I had these beautiful children. And yet I was really still unhappy. So that's why I did Empower Thyself, because I thought, well, it can't get worse. So I'm going to go ahead and try something different outside of my wheelhouse, to try and figure out why I'm so unhappy. But there's an empowerment that comes with that initiation. And when I came home, like your words have more weight and your actions carry stronger weight in the world. And so I observed my children observing me, and it was like a far more impact was happening to them post initiation. So it was like all of a sudden I became extremely aware that I needed to take some responsibility for how I was behaving and how I was choosing to live my life.
Mm.
And so that was the very first thing that shifted for me, like post initiation as a parent.
Mm. That's incredible. In one of the recent interviews, one of the guests shared how the kids were responding to as they were changing, even with no words, the child was changing because they were responding to the energy. So that's just incredible to see that ripple effect when
Yeah.
the environment around us change.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I experienced. It's so funny. I mean, I'm going to say this and take it as it is, but my son was the oldest, so he was like 12 and 13, like during that first year after, like when I got the life activation, did an initiation, we did the galactic activation. That all happened, very quickly. Within a year we did like the full spirit activation. I attended some classes like sacred geometry, and I was using and applying all these tools in my life. And my son, who was like 12 or 13, like middle school age, like saw all these changes, and he was like, he got worried because everything was happening so fast. Like we were changing so quickly. Like I changed, I wouldn't say I changed everything, but I changed a lot. And so he he called, like he was talking to his friends and said, I think my parents joined a cult because like my parents are getting, like they've changed so much in like such a short period of time. So I got a little phone call from his friends' parents asking about this thing that I was doing. And of course I laughed and I was like, well, I mean, how else would a young person perceive like such a dramatic change in their parents? Like I very quickly started having moments of joy, like after Empower Thyself. So like where I used to not even get out of sweatpants, like I was laughing and I was more animated. I was far more engaged in their lives. And I think that was a shock to him. And so he was trying to figure out why there was such a big change. So anyway, his friend's parent, she asked a couple of questions. I told her what I was doing, and she was like, "Oh my God, that sounds amazing." Like, like I'd like to figure out what you guys are doing because I'd like some of that in my life. So that parent actually did get life activated. But anyway,
That's incredible. Like I think when parents see, even in school, our friends who are also parents, that must be so inspiring.
mhm,
Because we so often can share the struggles,
mhm,
but when we see someone is changing and is that beaming light, how inspiring it must be for other parents to know, like, oh, there's hope for me as well to shift and transform. I don't need to suffer. How did the spiritual path impact your relationship with your kids? Have you got like some stories or some something that you wish to share, or maybe from your clients? You've been serving for over 12 years.
yeah. Well, I think the number one thing that changed or impacts like how you perceive your children, when you step onto this particular path, with the Modern Mystery School, this lineage of King Solomon, is like the recognition and the acceptance of the fact that your child is also a God being. And when you see your child as a God being, you change how you serve them because, it's this God being or this divine being with this divine essence, then serving this divine being who is still figuring out and programming itself for life. And it really changes your perspective as to like how you serve and you take a greater responsibility as a parent for the words that you speak to your child, the empowerment as opposed to creating enabling relationships with your child, the giving your child boundaries and expectations and you might call them like in parents they rules, but I think it's not about rules as much as it is about like understanding cause and effect and helping your child to recognize that every action has a reaction and teaching them that there is a responsibility you have to take when whatever choice you're taking, there's a responsibility that comes with that. So that certainly helped me as a parent myself. Like as I understood the structure of the human, as I understood myself in that structure, then I saw them as that too, and could see how I could plug myself in to support them in their own process that is entirely independent from me as their parents. Like they're here to do their thing. And my job is to try and get them to adulthood as successfully as possible with the least amount of like trauma and suffering as I can. But that stuff is inevitable, like as a parent. And this is something that I'm coaching a lot of my initiates who have children. Like the wounds are inevitable. We live in a system where that happens, and most childhood wounds really come through perception. Like I'm a young person, I don't have a lot of life experience. When something happens to me, how do I perceive it? I perceive it through the mind of the age that I'm in with a limited viewpoint, right? So we can get wounds from the one time that my mom had a bad day and she yelled at me. That can create like a belief about self, right? So children are inevitably are going to have these things, but the more that we empower them and not victimize them, not you know like reconfirm a victim idea, instead say, okay, well, I'm sorry I did that. I apologize. Please forgive me. And now what do you want to do with that? Like, how do you want to behave in the world? And are you willing to let go of the story? That's what we have to do as parents.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Mm.
it's an interesting thing, I think, because the very first thing is we have to take responsibility. Like as a parent, parenting my children, parenting myself, I have to be willing to be responsible for it all,
Mm.
and not in a place of creating shame or creating failure ideas or failure mentality. More so that if I'm responsible for everything that I've created in my life, then that means I actually have the power to make a different choice. If I don't like my outcome, then I am the only person who can choose something different. And if I live that way, then my children can live that way, right? If I live that way, then my initiates as a guy, like as a guide, then my initiates can live that way,
Mm.
right? So I think the other thing that I would love to just say, because I'm saying a lot, but the other thing I'd like to say is the understanding within the mystery school, we are a hermetic lineage. And everything that we learn as mystery school students is, interwoven with these principles of the universe, these hermetic principles. And as you start to really understand how the hermetic principles play in the world, it's this as within, so without, as above, so below. So as I am focused here, because I think a lot of parenting has this concept that I need to like hyper focus on my child, but that's actually that's not the right vibe. It's more like I need to focus on me to ensure that I am mirroring to my child a more purified mirror. I am performing my life so that my child can observe and apply the observational learning into their own lives. So like I can't be a hypocrite as a parent. I can't say, like do what I say, not what I do. Like that doesn't work. That's hermetically unsound. So I think that like this path, it's so perfect. It's perfect for parents and business owners and, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are, working in corporate world, because as you learn these hermetic principles and apply them in your life, it's affecting everything around you,
Mm.
including children, right?
Amazing. That's amazing. When you were sharing that, it just brought to me this one client of mine where she was struggling with this idea of, giving everything to her kids and being so so tired, so depressed, so unhappy. And on one of the sessions, she burst into tears saying, "Oh my goodness, I hate my kids."
Mm.
And and of course, she doesn't hate her kids. It's just the very beautiful thing you pointed out, like how we have to first take care of this to be able to show up for our kids and then empower them to
Mm.
also, do the things they love, to bring joy, to learn new things. And how that example, it's so important. I
I-
think sometimes parents, they really struggle with that, where they feel, that pressure. I want to be a perfect parent, I want to give everything to my kids, and they really put themselves last on the list.
Yeah. I think, Sovereign Obsessimus Dave Lanyon says, that a woman's job and a mother's job is to bring beauty, like to bring beauty to her family. And bringing beauty to the family is about that art, right? It's how do you express that into your family unit? And how do you create space for that expression from everybody in the family unit? And if we are doing everything for our child is not learning any kind of independence. Our child is not learning how to be self-sufficient, and our child isn't learning how to express their true essence into the world. So part of that mother energy is, here is this beautiful home that I am holding the boundary for, that I create space for everyone to express their goodness into that family unit. And if I am sacrificing myself to the end, to, like we would say the nth degree, right? If I'm doing that, then nobody else actually gets an opportunity to grow. I am like mitigating their ability to grow in the light. And that actually, it doesn't serve anybody, least of all myself, but it certainly doesn't serve my children.
One of my nephews, like I remember the story how he was getting excited actually by given responsibilities. We were baking together, and he was still very little, and I was like, okay, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this, and we made lots of mess. But he was so proud, that oh, I can do something, and I
Yeah.
think it's when we uh, embody maybe trust in them and give them opportunity, they feel like, oh, I'm a part of family. I'm a part, I'm important. And I think this is a beautiful way of empowering them, to giving them opportunity to grow in those ways.
I think there's a thing that happens, like we think we have to be perfect parents. And let me tell you, there's no such thing as a perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. But in the desire to be perfect, we also then project that perfection onto our children. So we don't create space for our children to make mistakes. And, it was something that was so it was such a part of my early journey in this path of self-healing, that I had to really take a look at how I had this idea of being perfect, and that I didn't have space to make a mistake. I didn't have space to have a bad day, even though I was having 100 bad days. I also wasn't in reality about what my life was actually. But then I was projecting that onto my children and hyper controlling them. and I wasn't giving them space to make mistakes. And there was this urge to like from within, it was an inner child issue, but I would like watch them do a project and then I would want to like step in and make suggestions as to like how they could make something better. And it's silly. I think about it now, like how silly that is. And yet in the moment, it was so visceral for me, this not like wanting to support my children to be perfect, which is insane. Like that's it's so not a part of a child's process. Like a child's process is, to your point, make mistakes, learn from them, live in this beautiful playground of life and try things and test things and what works and what doesn't and how do I hold this, this measuring cup and oh, look, it is does spill. It's kind of it's an interesting concept of this inner perfection and how we project that onto other people and we expect that they're perfect,
Mm.
hold people to a standard that's impossible.
Mm. And that takes me kind of to the next question I wanted to ask about reparenting yourself. How we, as we go through the journey of self-empowerment, spiritual maturity, when we can start seeing the patterns within us and how we actually looking through the world, through the glasses that are not so pure, and how we can project it, and how important it is, regardless if we are a parent or not, to reparent ourselves and really take care of the little one. Because I so couldn't connect to this trying to be perfect and how that was making my life so difficult. And I think many people who are listening can connect to this, trying to be perfect or having the fear of making mistakes.
Yeah. Well, certainly for me, I wasn't really tackling much of that inner work. Like early in the path, a lot of that stuff just really starts to naturally come into alignment. I think that's the blessing of, the life activation, the full spirit activation, and the adept initiation is that so much really starts to kind of organically shift in your life. If you're just doing your rituals, you're doing the practices, that really becomes natural, some of that early movement. But I knew I needed more and I needed more support. Now, I'm going to say I had been in therapy on and off since I was 9 years old. So most of my life I'd been in and out of therapy. And I knew that there was some really deep stuff that I had not even tapped into in therapy. And I had an amazing opportunity to attend the Universal Hermetic Ray Kabbalah program. And this was about a year and a half, maybe a year after my initiation, my adept initiation. So I undertook the Universal Kabbalah Ascension program. And for me, that program was the most impactful in the uncovering like the kernels of where those beliefs about perfection were rooted and some really deep kind of inner child reconciliation where there were parts of myself that didn't trust me. I had been so harsh to myself. My inner voice was so mean, and there was no room for failure in my world. And so my inner children who needed comfort, who needed nurturing, who needed to know that it was okay to make mistakes, they didn't trust me. And that first time through Kabbalah, so much of my work was this inner child stuff, just building trust with myself that when I make a mistake, I am not going to bring the hammer down. When I make a mistake, I'm going to be graceful and say things like, "Oh, well, that was good research. I know not to do that in the future." So I think that was a very profound transformation, like alchemically within me, but also like accepting who I am, accepting that there are all of these component pieces of myself that were formed throughout my life, but that they could actually unify and that they didn't need to be separate nuggets of self, right? Um, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but sometimes we become extremely adept at masking, and at like showing up in specific scenarios in our life as an entirely different person. And I was like a chameleon. I knew how to be exactly what I thought each situation required. So I was almost like a person with multiple personalities, like because I was so different when I would put on these masks or when I would go out into the world and pretend I was something else. That healing with the inner child, this reparenting myself, this being the parent that I needed. It's not that my parents were terrible people. They weren't terrible people. They did the absolute best that they could. And they did a lot better than their parents. Like I can acknowledge that. And yet they weren't what I needed, and but that's parenting. Like we don't always know what our children need, and they're going to get wounded, right? So I was wounded, and I needed to be the parent to myself that I needed back then. And when you can do that successfully and create that nurturing space for yourself, everything can be healed. And I found that to be true in that process of Kabbalah.
That's so interesting. I definitely can connect within my journey, of the being trying to be perfect and trying to wear different masks to fit in, and that was just a survival mechanism. I did my best to keep everyone happy, but it almost healing that perception of trying to be a good girl. I cannot really speak from the experience how will that affect my relation to children as I don't have them yet, but I could see for sure a change in my relationship with my parents as I understood that it's okay and gave myself permission to make mistakes. I became more loving and more compassionate towards to them and more grateful. Like, wow, they really did the best they could, and through this process, we all became more relaxed. It's funny, we are family for 40 years, but it's interesting as one person heals and allow this relaxation and this a more authentic expression, how that has a ripple effect to allow others too. And they can feel that compassion that we can compassion love which can continuously grow but how they can start relaxing to it.
I, you're so intuitive because I literally just had like 3 weeks ago my immediate family. So my father, my brother,
Mhm.
came into town. My dad brought his current wife, who's amazing, and I love her very much. And my mom just moved to Phoenix. We haven't lived in the same town for over a decade. And so this is the second time we've met as a family. And the second time it was probably the most loving, peaceful, harmonious, fun, lots of laughter, lots of love, even conversations that were really, you know, 10 years ago we would never even been able to have. We were having those. And, each one of those people as they went home, I connected with them and they all expressed the same thing. Like, I'm so grateful for our family. I'm so grateful that we can heal together. I'm so grateful that we, can love and appreciate each other in a way that we couldn't before. And there's been so much profound healing in my extended family as a result of this, because we're all connected. As I undertake my healing, it creates space for others that I'm connected to also heal at a deeper level, whether or not they're in the mystery school or not, right? Like it's an amazing it's an amazing hermetic truth.
Mm.
So yeah, I just had that experience and I feel so blessed and so grateful that I have the family I have today. And I know that it's a result of my own inner work and their own inner work.
That's so beautiful. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to talking and to hearing, your experience. I know we're slowly running out of time, but would you have any top tip for either a parent or maybe those who thinking of becoming parents, or maybe, those who just building their life, they not sure, but they maybe seeking that change. They want to better their life. What would be, that's something you would recommend?
Yeah, well, outside of my top tips would always be like get a life activation if you haven't had one, because it really gives you the energy you need to help unwind some of these things. But really, my true top tip would be learn how to create a pause. We are so reactionary, and we think that we need to immediately react to something. And as a parent, we actually don't. And if we can learn to create that pause, whether it's the countdown in your head, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, before you react, if we can create pauses, we actually can step out of what would be coming out of the subconscious, which is like, wounding. If we can create a pause to just take a deep breath, how do I want to respond to this? And then act, we will do less kind of damage in the world, or we will leave a more loving footprint. I think that's a better way of thinking. Leave a better loving footprint by just pausing. We don't have to react immediately.
Yes.
Just pause.
I'm gonna do the post just now. Yeah, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful top tip. Kaylee, thank you so much for joining me today. Goodbye for now, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please like and share.